Something that we're going to start trending towards on a Wednesday afternoon. We're going to recap the week and then kind of give the fans a little preview show. Kevin Aro joined by Justin, Jacob, Mark, and Billy, some of the guys from Real Sports Live. We're just going to talk some high school football here on Real Sports Live on our Sideline Sit Down on a Wednesday afternoon. So, guys, welcome aboard. Welcome back.
All right.
Good to be here.
Definitely. Billy, this is your first time on the show, so welcome to your first show here on Real Sports.
I appreciate it.
Definitely, guys. So we saw week one come and go, and I know there was a lot of excitement for all of us. I know Thursday officially kicked off the season, but for us that was on Friday night, and each of us were at our games, and a couple of games on the schedule. Ingleside beat Odom 18-14. George West. I didn't get the final on George West and West Oso. Mark, that was the game you were at. I know George West won pretty handily.
38-3.
38-3. Rockport beat Aransas Pass 26-0. Miller, the game that you guys, Justin and Jacob, were at, they beat TM 55-13. Game I was at, Falls City beat
62.
62. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, 62-13. I had 55. And then the game I was at, Falls City beat Three Rivers 41-20. So guys, let's start off with Corpus Christi Miller. Were they as good as advertised?
Miller did Miller. It wasn't a big surprise. What surprised me was how well they adjusted to the run compared to the scrimmage against Ingleside.
Justin?
Yeah, no, Jacob touched pretty good on that. I think Miller's defense is a lot better than what I gave them credit for going into it. Of course, they didn't really get tested through the air as much. I kind of felt like some of the play calling was a little suspect at times for TM. The identity wasn't there yet. I think if they don't find one, they're going to have a hard time with Ingleside this week. But other than that, man, body looked great from the jump. Adrian Lloyd looks really good early on. And they're going to be good. I mean, throughout the whole year, I think they're going to make a lot of noise as advertised.
Yeah, like Spud said, their big question mark is the secondary. TM's not a throwing team, and when they threw it was very late in the game finally, and Miller had their backups in already, and their backups look very good. Backups look very good right now.
I mean, if you look at their district as a whole, they really don't have a team. They don't have no one in the district that's going to stand out as a throwing team against them. So. Beeville lost Seth Gomez, right?
Yeah.
That was his name. He was a terrific thrower last year. Port Lavaca has never thrown the ball. They will never throw it probably until Coach Whitaker's gone. Cal Allen, they're going to be a run team. I saw a little bit of film on them. We tried keeping up with that Cornerstone game. I don't see them throwing very much this year, and barring a quarterback change. And then, Alice is probably your next best bet to actually throw the ball against Miller, and that's going to come down to what Miller or Alice's offensive line is going to be able to do, because TM had a big offensive line and Miller's D-line just steady wrecked it. I mean, that D-line is pretty filthy. So I think that right there, along with the middle linebacker core for Miller, is going to be outstanding for them moving forward.
Yeah, I saw the highlights that they ran at the TV station up there. The Andrew Adrian connection. That like you mentioned, Justin, they looked pretty good. Just how good can these guys be?
Yeah, it's very real. And I think Lonnie, the kid Lonnie, the sophomore, I believe, who's converted over from basketball, he's going to make a lot. He's going to probably be like what Adrian was last year for them, kind of come onto the scene, and they're going to be a good team to watch all year.
Now we saw Ingleside and Odom go at it, and Ingleside won 18-14. They just narrowly escaped. We'll be covering Ingleside when they play TM this week. Any cause for concern for Ingleside with TM coming in? TM did, they lost big, but that gives them more reason to really kind of just vamp things up this week when they travel to Ingleside.
I think it'll be pretty even. I think, when we watched Ingleside against Miller, and of course it's the scrimmage, everything's pretty vanilla on those things. But they were running that veer pretty good, very good actually. They gashed Miller for some pretty big runs on the outside. Against Odom, they didn't have a runner go over 100 yards. I don't think they had a runner go over 60. but they also split the ball between 4 runners. So I think it's going to be pretty even. I don't think it's going to be a blowout as we expect. And we talked about this on the telecast. This is kind of Ingleside's this is the year they have to take that next step to make the playoffs. So I think it starts here. I think they win that one, but I think it's going to be a pretty good game.
You're taking Ingleside, Jacob?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to take Ingleside too. Just based off of the offense for Ingleside was pretty smooth in that scrimmage. Like you said, it was a scrimmage, but to me, this is one of those things. I kind of feel like this is a must win for TM. Yes, it has no bar on how the rest of the season plays out, but mentally it might. You go down 0-2 in the seasons, kids sometimes tend to check out. And if you haven't found an offensive identity, I look at their offense and I think the quarterback Christian, if you put him in shotgun with some of the receivers he has, flourished, whatever you want to call it. Then they continue to go underneath center and try to make this wing tee approach. And granted, they're going against a really good defensive line, but it just wasn't fluid. It wasn't there. The timing wasn't what it was meant to be. And if you followed TM last couple of years, they've been predominantly a throw-in team. This kid that they got behind quarterback, he's big. He's got a good arm. I don't understand the need that they think they have to run the ball just because they have a big offensive line this year. I'm not really buying into that approach. So I do think Ingleside wins based off the fact that TM's offense is struggling to find that true identity on what they want to be. And I think actually Ingleside's a really good team this year.
Definitely. And for Billy, for you saw the Bobcats this past week, a team that you're familiar with. Just the same question I asked Jacob and Justin. Was it everything you guys expected?
Well, I grew up in Refugio. I've been following Refugio ever since I was little. And this year, our expectations were a little bit lower because we're a young team this year. We graduated a lot. And finding somebody to play that we were supposed to play Bruni, but Bruni backed out until October. So we had picked up Divine, and Divine's a big for a school. They went 6-5 last year, but sometimes they're pretty salty. But you always have those first game jitters of the season. We've got a lot of kids that have never played on a Friday night, and we knew they were going to have those jitters the first quarter. But when they settle down, of course, every boy in Refugio is born with a football in his hand, and he's sprinting when he's born. So, and we just got into control. Our defense held them back, and we beat them 37-6.
Definitely. What's week 2 looking like for the Bobcats?
Well, we got George West this Friday, and George West won their game, of course, and we're both 1-1. George West is in nervous mode. I can almost guarantee it. They have never beaten us before, and we've played them a lot. We usually play them quite a bit. We used to have them in our district, but now they play us, to get their boys ready for their district because they know we're going to come out tough every year. And I think it's going to be some of the boys will still have those jitters, but I think we'll settle down. And George West, they got a great coaching staff there, and they've been in the playoffs a few times. They missed the past couple of years because they've graduated a lot, but they've got a couple of kids that are really good at moving through piles. And they're one of the few teams that I can see rushing the ball good on Refugio's defense because Refugio's defense is better deep.
And Mark, you saw George West this past week. They took on West Oso. They won pretty handily. What did you see from George West going into their matchup with Refugio?
Yeah, just playing off of what Billy said, they run the ball very well. They have a bevy of running backs back there that could just take the ball and, like you said, move through piles. They're very patient. They wait for these blocks to develop. Most traditional Texas running teams, play under center and stuff, but they do run some of the RPO because they have a running quarterback as well. We've seen some options, stuff like that. But they can run the ball very effectively, and they're going to go as their quarterback goes. Devin Jackson, he split reps with a quarterback last year. I can't remember his name, Colton something. If you guys can help me out, he was the quarterback for that team that went 12-1 last year.
It was
Colton or or something
Well,
like
I
that.
think or graduated. I thought it wasn't the
Yeah, he
option
did.
kid.
He graduated, but I'm saying Devin Jackson, he got some snaps behind
Oh,
him,
okay.
so he's the main guy now. He ran for 3 touchdowns from 7, 9, 23 yards this past week. He was very good with the ball in his hands. But also you have Michael Upton, as you mentioned, he ran very well. Also had a couple of touchdowns. Accounted for all the scoring bolts from there. 5 TDs to the ground. But they, like I said, they moved the ball very well on the ground, and they're going to go as those two kids go. But they also have other kids that can run the ball. There's Logan Arceba. He touched the ball a couple of times. So he got a couple of good runs in there. I know that even their backup quarterback, Jake Snyder, he's a sophomore, came in late in the game, had a big run himself there. So, I mean, just pretty deep George West team. I don't know. They did lose a lot. I don't know if they're going to be as good as last year, that 12-1 team. But yeah, I think they're a very formidable team, and I think it'll be an interesting matchup if they can, move the ball against the Fugio. But like we know that the Fugio is going to be the Fugio, and it's going to be a tough game no matter what. So
True.
I'm just interested to see what's going to go on there. But I mean, yeah, if you're going to go in and try to beat a dominant team, I mean, you're going to have to move the ball, and keep the game tempo your way. So, but I don't know. George West looked pretty solid to me. I don't know if it was more good George West, bad Westoso. Westoso just couldn't do anything offensively. They even picked up a couple of turnovers deep in George West territory. Just couldn't convert. Had a 30-yard field goal, and that's about it for them. So Westoso, a team with a lot of questions after week one still. But yeah, George West looks solid.
We had a question from Wayne Spencer. What does Rockport bring to the table this year? Rockport Fulton, they're fixing to play Miller on Friday night. So, guys, any thoughts on Rockport and what they may bring?
Rockport's got a very young team this year. They had some pretty good performances last week. Their quarterback, Ace Seibert's that was his first varsity start last week. John Chupi had a good day. Ryan Wells, Luke Muirhead, they all had good games last week.
Chupi's the runner for them.
Yeah,
that's if you're close to the program, that's the runner for them. They got a new identity this year. Me and Jacob have good ties with Rockport. I played for Jay. We work with his brother. So we've known about Ace for I've known about Ace since he was like 4 years old, but
sixth grade. That's when we started hearing about
him. He's like been playing Pee Wee football. I mean, he's been a force. He's physically, he's like what 6'2", 6'3" already. Yep. He's a little skinny, but he's definitely got like the size for a traditional QB1. Obviously, he's adjusting to varsity level. Last week, just knowing them, he was nervous. First varsity game ever. And whatnot. But I think as the season progresses, Rockport has been known in the past, since Coach Seibert's got there to schedule. They schedule up. They take on hard teams, and they don't care if they go 0-3, 1-2, 1-3 in preseason. They really care about the district, and they're usually, by the time they get to district rolling, they almost have the same approach Cal Allen takes on it. And then by the playoffs, I mean, they took a couple hard losses a couple years ago to Waco La Vega, who, if you're familiar with Waco La Vega, they're no slouch. And, they were essentially a busted 2-point conversion last year from beating Wimberley in round 4, I believe. It was either 3 or 4, round 3 or 4, which would have, Wimberley made it to state and faced a very good team and lost. But the thing is they're coming into like a pistol formation this year. They're trying to transition to being more of a throw-in team with the run mixed in versus just a traditional slot tee like they've been running. So I think this is a very good test for Rockport on Friday. And I mean, they're facing a very good Miller team. So, if they do take an L, don't count Rockport as all they're having a bad year. I mean, they're going to be good this year, I think. And like Jacob said, they are very young.
Yeah. So you've seen the connection already in some scrimmages and this last week, this Ace Seibert to Caden Harder kid, the wide receiver out there, they've got something going on already. So don't be surprised to hear that name a lot. And like Justin was saying, so they're usually a wing T slot T team And now, I mean, it's no secret now, but I think we can talk about it now.
Yeah.
So they're running like a wing T pistol. So they're running the wing T out of a pistol formation, which it's kind of a little difficult, because it speeds everything up in the backfield. Where the quarterback's usually lining up under center, he's 6-7 yards back, and then everybody's moving by the time he gets the ball. So you've got to be that much quicker. And as a freshman, mistakes can happen, right? I think last week they had some couple bad snaps in that formation, so that's some things they've got to clean up this week. But I'm hoping to see a competitive game this week. That's a different wrinkle. I've never seen a pistol wing T formation on offense. It actually looks pretty neat from the clips and the film that we've seen on them.
Yeah,
actually, go ahead.
And they're developing. I mean, you gotta think, dude. You're going from a traditional running team to trying to develop receivers now for this new formation, which you can't just do that overnight. And I think they've been working with the younger classes the last couple of years in anticipation for this year and the next 3 years after with the playmakers they have coming up. So you're gonna see moments where it might not be as fluid, or like, if you watch some of the film, like sometimes the receivers have they almost get stuck watching, the quarterback work around stuff in the backfield versus trying to work to get open. So once you clean that up as the season goes on and you develop that connection, Rockport's going to be a tough team. And I think it's all about getting confidence in that younger group of kids moving forward. And, I expect to actually see a pretty competitive matchup this week. I know Jacob and me were pretty thrilled when we got to go cover that one. So,
Billy, actually, a fun stat for you. Ryan Linney, he says that Refugio is 17-3-2 against George West. So I'm guessing somewhere down the line, George West may have beaten the Bobcats 3 times in their time. But that's their record. I don't know how accurate that record is, but
maybe back in the early 90s is the latest, probably. Ryan usually keeps my numbers pretty good on the loop. He's also my camera guy, and he usually can look up stats within seconds. So it's all pretty. He's pretty awesome.
There you go.
But we got like I said, we have a young team. We got a sophomore quarterback. We've had some snap problem. We had some snap issues this last game. He was picking up the ball off the ground, and but he kept his composure, and he threw a couple of long touchdown passes, a 30-yarder and a 44-yarder, and ran the ball quite well. So, and of course our speed, it's always there. George West is just one of those teams that we really like to play because they do give us a test on the outsides, and we like to run to the outside a lot.
One thing I did see that worries me about George West is they're playing a West Oso team that their quarterback receiver connection just wasn't totally there. And so some of these long passes, West Oso wasn't able to complete, but I did see their receivers have a step or two on some of these corners and these safeties down the field. So it just leaves me to believe there's susceptible to some big plays there. But I don't know how accurate that is after just one game. I mean, maybe I could be wrong, but I think the West Coast secondary is a team that definitely can get thrown on. And I think that's something to watch going forward. And I think Refugio, you talking about their speed, so probably be one thing to watch there, that matchup. But I think George West, their bread and butter, of course, is just going to be on the ground. And their defense, I don't know. Just looking at their defense, I don't know if there's a lot there to kind of assess. So playing a team like West Oso that turn the ball over on downs quite a bit, just really couldn't get anything going. So I think this is going to be George West's official first test of the season, biggest test so far, and I think they're going to learn a lot about themselves defensively in week 2.
Mark, going back to West Oso, they hired a new not athletic director, but a new head football coach right as the pandemic kicked off, right? So
yeah,
it's growing pains. It's growing pains for those guys. I expect to see those guys get better. Spud, going back to what we talked about a couple of weeks ago with Kevin, Coach Smithy is Austin Smithy's brother from Cal Allen.
I was kind of figuring he was.
And here's another. I'm gonna throw a curveball here.
Oh, wow.
their dad is the Bears defensive coordinator.
See, I didn't know that. I saw that.
Yeah.
I had no idea. Whenever you commented, I had no idea. That's pretty neat, though.
Yeah. So I expect to see them get better.
Yeah, just a lot of struggles in the scrimmage and the first games is really couldn't put anything together offensively. And I don't know whether that's a new offensive system. Like I said, I haven't seen what they've been doing the last couple of years. Of course, you get a new coach and that's going to happen. So it just seems like a lot of things that they're working on. Their defense did look pretty sharp in flashes, but they just had no answer for that George West run. But their receivers did get separation down the field. That's one of the positive things I saw. They just weren't able to connect down the field. So I mean, their quarterback was able to move. He's a fast little guy. But Anthony Pena, he's a senior, and he's fast back there. He can move with the ball and he can definitely throw it and air it out. Just it seems like that connection between him and his receivers just hasn't developed yet. But the receivers were getting separation down the field.
Switching gears, guys, to the Cal Allen game. David said it was a very emotional week with that news with Gabe Cooley. They had his jersey there. They had a flag with his initials and his number. And then Cornerstone, they also had, I believe it was a number 80. They had their a jersey there up for him. Just talk about that, and what we saw from the outside looking in is just a very emotional. I mean, considering everything that's already going on, and then that having happened that week, it was a very emotional week for Cal Allen. Just from what you guys understand up in that area, what was that week like for them?
A lot of ups and downs. We had the Cornerstone kids on the show that Wednesday before, right?
Right. Yeah, a week ago.
Yeah, we had them on the week before, so we kind of knew what was coming. Honestly, I was very surprised how well Cal Allen hung in there. I expected Cornerstone to light up the scoreboard, and they didn't. Cal Allen had some pretty good runs on there on offense. Their defense, I mean, which is going to be their strong points, always their strong point. Their defensive line, forced Lucas Coley to tuck the ball and run a lot. I was very impressed. I was impressed, and a lot of folks here in the Coastal Bend are impressed here as well. Nobody's writing Cal Allen off just yet. Like Spud said earlier, there's some question marks. There's some question marks at quarterback, which was the case 2 years ago.
Yeah,
when Jarrett Garza took over, there was some question marks at the beginning of the season. Epi Hinojosa turned out to be a pleasant surprise. He's a sophomore there at running back who looks to fill the AJ Brown role there. He had a pretty good game. But yeah, I mean, nobody's hanging their heads down with that Cal Allen loss. I think they played very well.
Usually when teams like that, though, this is something, especially if it's somebody they know on a team, one of the Cal Allen teams, they use it as a motivation, and they just get better.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. That's a fair assessment about.
And the other part, if you follow the Wildcats, they start slow. They start slow every year. Not necessarily with a loss. I mean, when we talked to Goldman the other day, when was the last time they lost their opener, Spud?
Man, I'd have to say legitimately my last time remembering Cal Allen losing the opener was probably at Cal Chelsea, like I said on the air the other day, probably around like 07, 08, maybe 09, one of those years. And then of course I think it was 08 actually. And then, and the only one I can possibly maybe remember in there was like around like 2014-ish. 2013 maybe they lost to Kerrville week 1 or something, but I mean it's been a while, and you have to fact check me on that, but I know for a fact Ed Calchelsa probably 08-ish was the last known to me loss for them week 1, and that was a very loaded up Calchelsa team. They had a tight end I think that was supposed to go to Miami, and they had a quarterback that was
pretty legit. Was George Rubio and Artie.
Yeah, there you go. What year was that? Like 07, 08?
Yeah, 07, 08, yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah, Artie was their tight end. He wound up going to like Central Michigan or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that Ed Couch team was definitely loaded.
And they beat like 14-7 at the very end or something like that, I think was the final. I mean, it was a good game.
I got to see Fall City this past week, a team that you guys had mentioned was a perennial power, and having Coach Kierhoff back for his second stint. Through Rivers, Mark. What's that?
Oh, they're always Fall City is
Yeah.
always tops.
Mark, Three Rivers hung in there with them. You and I were impressed with what we saw Three Rivers in their scrimmage against Runge a couple weeks ago. But Fall City, outside of the first play from scrimmage was a 68-yard touchdown run from Jackson Pipes. Outside of that, they had a couple turnovers, a couple penalties, and really did not look like the Fall City that people had been accustomed to seeing. But it was really a strip sack, a scoop and score that really turned that game around. That was Alex Hoffer who scooped it up and went into the end zone, and that gave them a 14-13 lead. And it was like that for a while, but I think that was the play that Fall City needed to kind of just separate themselves. And Grant Gendrish, I was really impressed with him. He was as good as advertised. He led the team in tackles last year with 114. And then he also ran for 1,000 yards. So, he did a little bit of everything in this game for Fall City, and he got a pick in that game. He had a couple touchdown runs. So I think Fall City just kind of took them a little while to get going, but when they did, they really hammered it home. And that triple option, I think that second quarter, they ran the last 8 minutes off the clock, and they ended it with a touchdown, and that kind of really mowed down that Three River defense. But Mark, Three Rivers, Caden Solis, he's a freshman. I don't know if we realized that 2 weeks ago. Starting at quarterback, Zach Davis did pretty good. Three Rivers is going to be pretty good.
Yeah, no, they had some big playability, and we were really impressed with their defense. I know it was a scrimmage against Runge, but I mean, they look solid all the way around. That looked like a team that was built right, pretty solid every which way. And yeah, the quarterback play was pretty solid. Big playability is there for that team. So I mean, it's gonna be an interesting team to watch going forward.
Three Rivers brings a pretty decent team to the table for since I can remember, Three Rivers usually brings a decent team to the table.
They have a new head coach as well, so he's a first year head coach, athletic director there as well. And Billy can vouch for this, and I may get hate mail from Three Rivers, but that district's a battle for second place. I mean, so
that's right. I agree.
Yeah. So I mean that's how it's usually been. It's been the last couple of years. It's been Refugio, Three Rivers, 1 and 2.
What was the final on Fall City and Three Rivers? What was the final on that score?
41-20.
Okay, so Refugio has to beat Three Rivers by more than 21 points because they're going to catch some hate mail. If you ask anyone from Fall City, they think they can beat Refugio. I don't buy it.
That's the narrative every year, especially the last couple of years.
That's the narrative every year.
The last couple of years.
You got to throw in too. Fall City got a pick six late in that game. They got a pick six late in that game. So I mean the score. I mean, it was a lot closer than what that scoreboard shows. But you're right. It was but Mark, I'll tell you, it's Jacob Amato and Rigoberto Sanchez are those two wide receivers you and I were impressed with. Granted, because guys, we were at the scrimmage, we had a roster, but there were no numbers. That was the frustrating part.
But they had some good big bodies that you could put down the field and put them in space. They can, and they kind of cancel out some of those growing pains for a freshman quarterback. There were some high passes going down the field, but they had some receivers with good hands. They're able to reach up over their head and able to go get it and then get some nice yak after the catch. So I mean,
those are the two guys that you and I were impressed with. And then Zachary Davis, he reminds me a lot of Christian McCaffrey. He lined up in the slot, ran a couple bubble routes, a couple screens, and then he was out of the backfield. So that kid can really do it all. And it was a little worrisome in that third quarter. He went down, and we weren't sure about his injury, but he wound up just having cramps. So thankfully, he was able to come back in that ball game. But man, he is a big piece of that offense for Three Rivers. And I know Billy, you're probably familiar with some of these names. But about Coach Ramon Solis he was actually on the staff last year. This is his first year as head coach. So he already had some familiarity with the program. Jake, to what you were saying is that it's difficult for these new coaches to just hop right in, and then throw the pandemic in there. These coaches didn't have a lot of time to work with these kids. But Fall City, they were ranked 9th in the state, and I think they showed why. And I think that they were really excited to have Coach Kierhoff back. And Jackson Pipes was pretty impressive. He's a junior quarterback, and they like to run the football, and they did it pretty well on Friday.
Hey Billy, we got an update here from Ryan. So Refugio, George West beat Refugio 94, 74, and 31. Pretty spread out.
See, I figured 94 was. I figured 90s was when it was. if it had happened last, and that's right after Harris left, and we had a couple of coaches come in for a few years that were changed the system, and we got even beat by Skidmore one year, and during a district play, and it was now, but when you have everybody's expectations, how many times we've been to state, how many times we've won state, and we're ranked, second ranked in the nation this year in small schools, and people have all these expectations. But some of these other schools they really like to play us because it challenges their kids. But we are always looking for somebody to challenge us, because our season normally starts in the playoffs. I mean, that's normal. Especially since Herring's been there, because he's been there for 20 years, and that's when we start our season, is in the playoffs.
It's usually round 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, when we start hitting that Shiner Mason area.
Yeah. And that's why I told Joe the other day when we were talking about Refugio, because he was just asking me what I thought about him, and I said, I think the biggest thing with them is I would say right now, I think they're the underdog for sure against Shiner going into it this year. But I also told him that I think a lot of that depends on the young quarterback. If that young quarterback comes out and, takes the reins and transforms into what what they think he can be, because I think he's got a lot of hype around him, then, the possibility of beating Shiner and going on the state is very high. If he plays like a sophomore and struggles throughout the year, then no, I don't think they get past Shiner, and that's usually when the season starts picking up. So, to me, the whole season really depends on how he progresses, which it looked like week 1, he was looking really good. And, just from talking to certain people I know that, they think he's going to be another good Refugio quarterback. So you match him up with Kelly, and then, the other, there's another back y'all got over there.
Ochoa. Well, we had Ochoa last year, but Caleb, he picked about 85% of the snaps he had Friday night. He picked up off the ground, and he did something with it. He's kept his composure, and that's what I was glad to see. And I think he'll grow. I think this season he'll grow real strong. Shiner is always up in the air. You never know. I mean, you look at the way Hallettsville came back on them the other night, and then they had to come back and win the game. Shiner usually has that at the beginning of the season. Then they get stronger and stronger, and then when we meet, it's always strong.
Yeah, I don't think he'll ever top last year's game with Shiner. But yeah, I do agree with you.
That'll never.
That one's marked down on a bulletin board somewhere. I'm gonna take your spot here, Kevin, steal your thunder here a little bit. Talking about comeback wins, the Orange Grove Sitten game last week. Did you guys keep track of that score, Mark, Billy, Kevin?
I need to watch. Did Rio Sports cover that game?
No, so nobody covered it, but we were just keeping up with the score.
I did not, as it was going on. No,
throughout the game. So Sitten was leading 20 to nothing at the half.
Yeah.
And then Cutter Stewart, I guess, decided to make his appearance in the second half. And it turned into a barn burner. I think it was 44-40. Is what it ended up with Orange Grove. With Orange Grove taking the win, and Cutter Stewart throwing for I think 253 and running for another 144 and 2 touchdowns. They've got a couple big receivers out there in Orange Grove, and we were there with Coach Guerra from Orlando Guerra, who's going to be calling the Falfurrias games. He was in the booth with us for Miller.
I found a final,
and he was giving it.
I found the final. Orange Grove 56, Sinton 44.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so not to be outdone, and I hadn't checked the state leaders yet, but Rylan Galvan, the super sophomore out of Sinton, ran for 302 yards and 4 touchdowns. His brother, who's the quarterback, Rene Galvan, was 4 for 9, 86 yards, a touchdown, 17 carries, 114 yards, and 2 touchdowns.
They're twins, by the way.
Yeah, they're twins. Rylan is a UT baseball commit, right now. Committed as a freshman, didn't he?
Yeah.
Spud.
Yeah.
Sitting in Rockport's district. So it's gonna be a pretty interesting district, that district as well. You know, we talked about how 15-4A D1 is gonna be pretty big with small. The small 4A is probably gonna be one of the toughest ones in the area as well.
I think Orange Grove came out and made a statement that they're going to be the team to knock off in their district as well, because I don't think that's a fluke win, honestly, when you look at the stats and who they did that against. You know, it wasn't like they beat up on a nobody. Sinton was a very nice surprise last year, which, you know, me and Jacob kind of, you know, we liked Coach Troutman, and I think we thought, like, man, they're going to have a good season, but our expectations weren't what they were able to do. They overperformed their expectations from us, and I think everyone else around the area. So, you know, obviously going into Friday, me and Jacob both, I personally thought Sinton was going to handle that game, and it looked like it first. So we're sitting up there watching these score updates and like getting our minds blown. And then, you know, when you start looking at an Orange Grove team, this is what, Coach Del Percio's fifth year there now? Or fourth?
I think so.
No, this might be year 3. Because I want to say his first year was when we started up our show. And if that's the case, it's year 3 for him, which is about par for the type of offense he wants to run. And they were already kind of, I think, built for that anyways. They were throwing teams before him. So that's going to be a fun team to watch as well. If Cutter Stewart and his receivers can keep that up, they're going to be tough. And they'll probably make a deep run as well. You know, I think Sinton bounces back. I don't think Sinton is a bad team this year at all. I think Orange Grove might just be a lot better than what people give them credit, including us.
Yeah, I think so.
But that district the past few years has always been one of those districts you don't know. There's no clear winner out of it. You don't know. I mean, with Rockport, Sinton, and Cuero was in the mix a couple of those years.
That's what Cuero was running away with everything.
That district in South Texas is probably the unclearest district each year.
Well, until the new 4A arrived.
Yeah. So so Sinton.
Well, yeah, the 4. But
so Sinton goes to Beeville this week, and I guess we can talk about Beeville here for a little bit.
That's going to be the first district matchup, correct?
No, Beeville is in Beeville's Big 4A.
Oh yeah, Beeville's Big 4A. Sinton's a little. Okay, Orange Grove. What district are they in though?
They're Big 3A.
Okay, so they're in there with George West and
1.
George West dropped. George West small 2A or small 3A now.
Okay. Well,
yeah, they're 2.
Look at
they're 2 Division 2.
Okay, I need to look at Orange Grove's district, but I find them right now to be the most intriguing team in that district without even knowing who else is in there. Coming up with
Orange Grove,
London, Bishop, I think San Diego.
Okay, yeah.
Who still hasn't started practice yet.
Yeah, Orange Grove. No doubt. Then.
Well, if London's in that district, y'all saw Refugio and London scrimmage each other, and London didn't bring a JV, and they had a whole bunch of kids. That school is growing. It'll be 4A for too long.
Yeah, and then it'll get annexed by Corpus Christi pretty soon. So expect that to happen. Sorry, London. Everybody moving out there for no city taxes. It's coming. All right, Kevin, I'm done stealing your thunder. Sorry.
No, you go right ahead. No, I was trying to find that district. Did you find that district you were looking for?
No, I think those are the teams: Bishop, San Diego, London.
Was it Lyford? Lyford didn't move into that district too?
I think Lyford's in that district. Progresso, maybe.
Progresso did move down. Did move down.
Finally.
Is Heavenville in that?
No, Heavenville small.
Okay.
Heavenville small 3A. Who also they have not started practice yet either.
Yeah, they said that Alice was also getting close.
Sorry, Kevin.
No, go ahead. No, yeah, I found it. Lyford, London, San Diego, Fowl, Bishop, Progresso, and Santa Gertrudis. That's 16-381. That's that district there. And then Orange Grove, Vanderbilt, Industrial.
Oh, they're north. They're with Mathis.
Mathis, Palacios, Edna, OG, Goliad, and Aransas Pass. 15-381.
Oh, they're on the north side. Wow, that's going to be a pretty tough district too. Industrial is going to be no slouch this year. They had a pretty deep run last year.
Yeah, so that answers that question. Anything that stands out for week 2, guys? I know, Billy, you're going to be in Refugio. I'll be at Ingleside. Mark, tentatively, you are supposed to be. Let's see the schedule here.
At Robstown, hopefully.
At Robstown, that's the plan. And then Jake and Spud, you guys are supposed to catch Miller and Rockport. And then the other games, West Oso at Taft, Odom at Orange Grove, London at Robstown, Skidmore at Freer. That's a new school that we added onto the list was Freer.
Yeah.
And any thoughts there, guys, on any of those games that maybe stand out?
Well, I think you mentioned it already. The 2 big games. There's a magazine in the Valley. I don't know if I'm allowed to say it or not. That's got the Refugio George West game as their game of the week this week, so they'll be up there. And then the Caller Times has Miller Rockport as their game of the week this week.
I think the Miller Rockport game will be bigger than ours.
It's
ours is going to be more a blowout.
Wow, look at that. Billy throwing down the gauntlet already.
Hey, I've covered this team forever. I know them.
There's a right now, and we've kind of talked about it a little bit. I kind of love it right now because the spotlight's on the small schools right now. Normally at this time, the bigger districts are getting all the coverage, especially, it happens that way in the Valley.
Yeah.
All the 6As and 5As and up get all the coverage down there. So now these smaller schools are finally getting the spotlight on some of these, on their teams, their programs, their coaches, and their kids. So, I love it. Yeah, I'm gonna stray a little bit because there's a big game that's coming up in the San Antonio area. It's the Legacy Bowl between Natalia and Lytle. Separated by 5 miles. This rivalry's been going on for like 60 years, I think. I don't have an all-time record.
Natalia, huh?
Yeah, I don't have an all-time record on this thing. But this is from one of the guys.
Who's the coach there at Natalia?
I do not know. I know the board president is my contact out there, Eric Smith, and he's sending me this information. So these games have actually been canceled between the 90s and the 2000s, a few of them, because the rivalry is getting a little too intense. So they had to cancel some of these games. And you don't hear about these kinds of things at these bigger schools, where these rivalry games get so intense like that. I mean, it's really spotlighted on these smaller schools. But they turned this whole thing around. Now they call it the Legacy Bowl. Back in 2004, Eric and a woman named Brenda Fernandez, they put this thing together where they actually give out 4 scholarships, 2 for each school at this game. They give out a trophy. They have sponsors for this game, either families and local businesses that sponsor it. And then each dollar from the ticket sales go to the scholarship fund, which I think is pretty neat.
That is neat.
But I'm going to share my screen real quick. It's not a video, so it's not going to get choppy. This was up in Lytle. Oh, I can't. You gotta give me permissions, Kevin. So,
shut him down. Shut him down.
You're muted. So what I put, make co-host?
I guess, I don't know. However you can share screen. Okay, there it goes. I got it. Okay.
But now you're co-host.
So this was shared by our buddy Robbie Chavez up in San Antonio, South Central Texas football. This went up in Lytle. Now take a look at it, read it if you will. Let me know when it pops up on y'all screen.
The McDonald's?
Yeah, the McDonald's. Go Lytle Pirates.
Yeah.
Eat the Mustang. So
Lytle Pirates.
So
that's what happens during virtual learning, guys.
So the scuttlebutt on this one is it's an inside job. The guy who's changing the sign is a kid from Natalia that works there at that Lytle McDonald's, and kind of throwing the shade on their education system there in Lytle. I'm gonna stop sharing now, but I thought that was pretty funny.
That's pretty damn funny, actually.
So that game's going on.
Okay,
Go ahead, Billy.
Jacob, can you clear up Jacob, can you clear something up for me?
I can try. I can't make any guarantees.
I was held okay, I missed all of last season. I wasn't here. I was held prisoner of war in New York. But somebody told me that Fremont is playing again.
Yeah, 2 years ago, right, Spud?
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 years ago they brought their football program back.
Did they really?
So you guys were, I don't know if
Because I thought they were
back in a
shut
big
down
way.
for good.
I don't
They
know if
got a huge upgrade to the facilities and everything.
Yeah, Stephen Van Matry, who was the superintendent in Sitten for many years, passed all these bonds, got all these facilities built in Sitten, got down there, and they were taken over by TEA for poor academic performance a few years ago. When like you said, Billy, on the brink of shutting down. Well, they turned it around.
They were shutting down.
Yeah, they turned it around.
Wow.
And they built a new football stadium, turf, new stands. And they brought it back. What did Coach Cantu tell us, Justin? They played a JV schedule their first year.
Yeah.
And then they jumped back in, just barely missed the playoffs that first year back. Made the playoffs their second year back, and now
that's impressive.
And now moved up a classification. Now they're big 2A this year and in their third year. So Coach Cantu is doing some pretty good things down there in Fremont. And he's a Falfurrias graduate, so he knows the area, knows the kids. So that's pretty interesting.
They
are back, Billy.
Yeah, then you get the superintendent over there in Refugio.
Oh, we had them in our district right before TA got all over them, and I have to say, I'm not trying to put them down or anything, but that was horrible in that stadium. I mean, it was a deer blind without walls. But to see them come back and those kids able to play, that's good news. That's awesome to hear those kids be able to play again, because they were all going to go to Falfurrias. And
I think they did. They a lot of them ended up going to Falfurrias, and when they started bringing it back, a lot of those kids came back.
They're in 16 to a D1. Fremont is.
So yeah, live division up with us.
They're in they have Santa Maria, La Villa, Fremont, Ben Bolt, and Rivera, Coffer. So
not Ben Bolt anymore.
And Ben Bolt's out of it.
Yeah.
But
because of the pandemic, right? Right.
Yeah.
But they're going to be playing
their whole season.
They're going to be playing
Gracia, yeah.
Yeah.
So they're all making the playoffs.
So repeat that whole district.
Santa Maria, La Villa, Fremont, Rivera, Coffer,
yeah.
Right.
And then Ben Bolt, but you're right. Ben Bolt's not playing this year.
So they're all making the playoffs.
So that whole district is going to the playoffs.
Yeah, it's a 4-team district.
They're all making the playoffs.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah, they got Bernie Castellanos listed as a preseason offensive MVP from Santa Maria.
Oh, really?
He did pretty good last year.
No, that was a very formidable something but a team. Defensively, they had some really good linebackers last year. They unfortunately they had to run into Shiner every time they went to the playoffs. So I mean,
right.
I mean, nothing you can do about that.
Yeah, and Gustavo Sandoval, the Sandoval brothers, you're right, at the linebacker position last year was pretty good for Santa Maria. And guys, Santa Maria, if you guys just catch 186 from La Feria and just go south till you can't go no more, and you can only go right and left. Down there, Santa Maria, and Coach Gracias put together quite a little bit of a run here these last couple of years. I know Mark and I, they were in our coverage area, and we got to see them a couple times. And like Mark said, they just happened to run into Shiner. They had Refugio in their district, so they run into some pretty tough teams. But outside of that, they beat La Villa this past year, and that was a staple win for the Cougars.
Yeah, La Villa's had a pretty good team the last couple of years.
Right.
Finished last year.
The last couple of years when Zach Gomez when he transferred over there his senior year, I think in 2017, they went a couple rounds deep. So no, they're pretty salty out there. But Santa Maria, a lot of people, especially here in the Valley, some outlets tend to sleep on the 2As. But
Well,
Santa Maria.
They're forgotten.
Well,
down
there's
there, just
only
like I
two,
said.
there's only like two of them.
I didn't even realize I forget they always have the real small schools down there.
Yeah.
So like,
Well, let's be realistic. The Valley's just a giant metroplex now. Really.
Yeah, dude.
I mean,
Yeah, it really
right.
is.
once you
lot
get
of
to
people-
Harlingen, it all blends in together.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, everybody. That's the thing about the Valley. People look at the Valley, when it comes to football, as a lower echelon and everything, but they're just. It's because like they spend most of the year just fighting themselves up until like the third round of the playoffs. It seems. I
Yeah.
mean, they're all just like big schools, 5 and 6As, and then once you get below 4A, you have maybe just a handful of schools. So those teams are always having to play up here. So I mean, people just don't realize that. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of big schools in this very populated area. So hopefully we get to see it soon.
I have one more question. I have one more question I'd like to pitch out to all of you. I'd like to hear your thoughts on it. I'm sorry to take your fire here, Kevin. Some of these teams like Bruni, Ganado, and teams like that are postponing their seasons until like October. Do you think that will change how they've been in the past, missing that many games before they start their season?
Change what?
What do you mean by change? Yeah.
Well, a lot of ISDs have postponed their season until October because of COVID.
Mhm.
And so they're not going to be playing the same amount of games this season as they usually do. Like Bruni's always been a good powerhouse down in that lower section, and they've always made the playoffs. Do you think they will change any not playing through September?
I don't think it changes them making the playoffs. I think it may change them exiting a round or two earlier than normal, but I don't think it changes that drastically.
If anything, they're rested.
So you don't-
I mean, they're more rested, less wear and tear, but at the same time, you don't have the reps.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a
That's
double-edged
true.
sword. I mean, and then once you start, you still got to have like a 2-week acclimatization period. So games won't. I mean, you guys are looking at that right now.
Exactly. That's what I'm
You guys
thinking.
are looking at that right now in the Valley, right? With the 4A that's split with the Coastal Bend. You got Rio Hondo, Port Isabel, and Hidalgo that
Yeah.
can't do anything. That essentially, or Raymondville, I'm sorry, that are fighting for one playoff spot because of the late starts over there, right? I think Port Isabel has maybe a 2-game schedule right now, maybe.
Yeah, something like that.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
2 games.
definitely interesting.
Yeah, just I mean, mostly because of the whole county restrictions. I mean, the UIL stuff is okay, but as far as the counties and stuff, we're probably not going to see any football for the Valley until late this month at best.
Yeah, when the 5As and 6A start, because Harlingen and they've said they're moving forward. I just saw yesterday McAllen said that they're going to go ahead and start workouts before in-person instruction begins, and that's a whole 180 from what they've been saying. I guess Edinburgh's still on the fence, right?
Yeah, Edinburgh was still on the fence about it. So I mean, it's
PSJ Memorial and them, yeah.
yeah, and then what me and Kevin were talking about is because of the whole zoning issue, there might not be a Battle of the Arroyo, right, Kevin?
Oh,
Yeah.
dude, that
darn.
should be a Kevin. Can't hear you.
Where are you, Kevin? Did he mute himself?
Maybe,
Probably.
dude. I can't hear you. You see your mouth moving. I don't hear any words.
Kevin. Unmute Kevin.
Kevin.
Now he's muted. Now
Somebody
he's
write
muted.
it on a piece of paper.
Kevin,
Can't hear you, dude. Yep.
you're
Yeah.
muted. You can't hear you. Can't hear you. Can't hear you, Kevin.
So what do you get? Well, until Kevin figures out his. What do you get? What games are you guys looking forward to this weekend? Mark, Billy, obviously, other than the Refugio George West, Billy.
Well,
Actually,
I don't have
that's the one
points.
I wanted. That's the one I had my eye on because I thought George West was so good. But like I said, the Fuyo's going to be the Fuyo. But I think you can never count out a team that can come out and play ball control. And I think if they can take care of the ball, George West, and maybe keep the tempo in their favor, maybe they'll have a puncher's chance. Who knows? But I feel, I mean, that's a solid team. I thought, but like But yeah, Miller, Rockport, that's going to be a heck of a game. Miller. I'm interested to see what they do. I mean, last year they were like sixth in the state in scoring, and I think they're going to be as good, maybe even better in some areas this year. And I think they're going to run away with that district. I mean, some people thought they were getting into a good district, but like Coach said over there, he was like, we're leaving a good district. So I mean, Miller's. They're going to be fun to watch.
Well, we heard an interesting take after the game from I don't know. Do we say his name, Spud? We just one of the sideline photographers. We heard an interesting take from one of the sideline photographers there, who's pretty keyed in.
Yeah.
And his opinion is that the home team's going to win these games between Port Lavaca, Cal Allen, and Miller. They're all going to lose a game. Is what his opinion is. They're all going to lose a district game. It's probably going to be to each other.
He said he knows he's going to take heat for that.
Yeah. But and we didn't even talk about Calhoun, who played Waco La Vega pretty tight, considering they went down 20, was it 20-7 or 21-7? Either way, it was a 3-score ball game. And
and that game was scheduled the Monday before.
Yeah, it was scheduled that week. And depending on what you read and what you want to believe, I mean, from what they said, Calhoun was they dug their own hole in that one.
Yeah, me personally, I told you about it. Both teams, that was their first game of the season. So, to look into it as, oh, hey, this is our first week. We played them pretty good. Well, you also have to keep in mind that was Waco La Vega's first week, and I'm pretty sure Waco La Vega doesn't see the triple option every day.
No.
So yeah, you lost 20-7. It looks good on paper, but me personally, I want to see what that game looks like if you rematch in the playoffs, because that's where it ultimately counts. And people get we had 2 or 3 mistakes and we win that game. Well, I mean, it can go both ways. So, I take that with a grain of salt. I think that's good. They didn't get blown out 56-0. You get blown out 56-0, then right there, that's going to say a lot about your team from the very jump against that competition. But
Waco Vega, they're salty. So,
but I mean, like I said, you don't see the triple option all the time, and you have a week's notice to prepare for it. And you still held them 7 points with Steve Johnson healthy and full go. That I think should be the big, bright, takeaway from that game is they held Port Lavaca to 7 points. A 5A Division II team that dropped down to 4A, who's been in the top 10 in 5A the last probably 3-4 years in a row and makes deep runs. That right there, to me, says a lot about that Waco La Vega defense right off the very get-go. They held them to 7 points. So.
Check. Can you guys hear me?
Hey,
there's Kevin.
Hey, there he is.
Figured I have no idea what I hit. But anyway, back to that Battle of the Arroyo deal was the interesting thing there is that Harlingen is actually split away outside of their division with San Benito.
I can't believe that.
It's strange. It's down the street.
Separated for a year because the rivalry's been getting. All of this has just been that we've been seeing. Just split them for a year. I'm good with that.
Mark, bite your tongue, Mark. Bite your tongue.
Oh no.
Now split them for a year. Split them for a year. Just 1 year, especially during this time. We don't need them because despite what happens, COVID regulations, both of them, they're going to be so headstrong and they're not going to listen to anybody. They're not going to listen to anything. It's dangerous. Split them. Split them for a year. I'm good with that.
Speaking of, did you guys see the UIO's message that came out? And before that, the pictures from some of these stadium capacities?
Yes. And I'm glad they did that because some of these people need to be like, hey, like, seriously, we're going to shut it down. And I mean, there's some people that, they're just not listening and they think like, okay, we're outside. We don't have to do anything. I was at a game yesterday and I saw somebody walk in and they had just a face covering, no like face mask, just a face covering. And I'm just like, they need to be really clear on this stuff like this, like, because as happy as we are that we're getting football now, it can get taken away from us and people don't realize how quickly the UIL can take it all away. But they need to just hunker down, put their face mask on, suck it up, and just abide by these rules. And if And if not, watch it here with us. That's why we're doing what we're doing. Going out live to some of these games. I mean, people just need to appreciate what they have right now and not get it taken away from them. And I really hope that people in schools start to adhere more to some of these rules and be stricter when it comes to enforcing them.
That's the same take I had, Mark. I'll be first. I hate the mask. I think I'm not a fan of it. I'm not really all for some of the rules they're restricting. But you're right. If they continue to not do anything about it and let this go on, the UIL is just going to pull the plug ultimately, and we're all going to miss out on the season, and they're not going to care. Because it is a good thing to issue a statement, because if they didn't issue that statement, then I think more and more people are like, okay, well, they didn't do nothing to land past this in Midlothian, so we're going to do it, and then just keep pushing it. And the next thing you know, no one's doing the rules anymore. And so I do think it is good they got out in front of it, and I hope that people take it serious, or else you're right, they're going to pull the plug on all of our seasons.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody likes wearing the mask going out there. I mean, it's an inconvenience. I mean, and I know that whether studies or not, I mean, it just sometimes you just like it feels like you're just like in this little like bubble sometimes, and and then you're just breathing, and it's like it gets warm, whatever. I understand that, but like I feel that. I mean, you got to wear it. You got to, if you want to watch football, you want to have like these little freedoms that you still have because of what's going on. You got to, put the mask on. I mean, I think it's a small price, love it or hate it. It's a small price to pay to have high school football, especially right now. And I feel that the fact that we have it, we should all be grateful for it. And I think we don't want it to go anywhere. So we're Friday nights, guys. Wear the mask.
The fat punter, who's a writer for the Pleasanton paper up there, it had one of my favorite tweets yesterday. I could have liked it 1,000 times. The UIL saying "Don't be that guy" to coaches who tend to say "Don't be that guy" is up there for my most 2020 moment of 2020.
Yeah, no, that's good. Yeah, it's good. It's true though.
Yeah, but let's be fair. It's not the coaches. The coaches are on the sidelines. No. It's the admin. It's the folks who are in charge of the stadiums. Usually, it's admin who are usually on duty or whatnot.
Exactly. Exactly, because and every ISD is different.
Yep. But it comes down to ticket sales.
Every ISD is different. When we went to Divine only allowed 290 so visiting fans. Mm-hmm. This week in George West, they're allowing almost 700 visiting fans.
Wow.
And I don't know if y'all heard this or not, but when Edna had their scrimmage, they didn't allow anybody in the stands. I don't know what they did last week for the first game, but during their scrimmage, they didn't allow anybody to watch the scrimmage.
Wow.
I'm for that.
So each ISD is different.
Yeah.
Yeah, Three Rivers.
And it's tough for us. And the tough thing about Refugio is we don't have any home games this year.
Yeah, none. You're at the mercy.
We're playing
at
other people's places.
Yeah.
It's almost because I feel like Refugio would have been one to ignore the rules and stuff the house. So it might be a good thing that y'all can't have fans there.
Hey, if you guys said you wanted a challenge, there's a challenge. Places. You don't get a home game. Whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, Three Rivers had 50% capacity this past week, and I think my game was the only one that had bands. We had both bands there. We had both cheerleaders there.
Really?
So there was some sense of normalcy, but the bands.
I had nothing. I was at halftime trying to rattle off 28 minutes of something. And there's no bands for me to cut to. There was nothing. Yeah. George West also had like a smaller pet band that they put together. It was maybe like 10 to 15 band members that kind of came out and played something, but that was about it. We had nothing. The nothing. The Rockport volleyball game had more going on in between sets than the West Coast George West football game. Yeah, and I'm dead serious about that. I'm not exaggerating. There was that Rockport actually had like during the volleyball game they had like a cheerleader floor routine and stuff, which is I guess it was fine for what it was. There wasn't too many people.
Yeah, Buck Stadium they didn't. The Miller band didn't march. Teloso didn't take their band, and Spud brought it up. I don't even think they took cheerleaders.
No.
So it,
Just
but
the cheerleaders and band. That was
you know,
it.
the size of Buck Stadium, you guys have seen it. You guys have all been there before. Very handled very well.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh, the
everybody.
pictures. That was probably, I saw the pictures you posted. That was probably the best social distancing guidelines, whatever you want to call it, I'd seen out there from all the games on Friday night. It looked pretty well handled.
Yeah, CCISD had a very good handle on it, and they did very well. I mean, there was, man, what we put the pictures up at 4 o'clock when we got there, Spud, or
Yeah.
5 o'clock, and there were people waiting in line already for an hour. So it's not because people didn't want to go watch a game,
No, they want to be.
or they couldn't get tickets. I mean, people were there at 4 o'clock to get tickets when the gate opened up at 6. So it wasn't for a lack of people wanting to go.
Definitely. Well, guys, before we wrap up,
Yeah.
any final thoughts?
Not really.
No, man. Tune in
No.
tomorrow.
Yeah.
Tune in to us tomorrow. We're working on a little show that's going to be very pirate-tastic. You guys figure out which one.
Pirate? You mean pirate?
Pirate-tastic. Yeah, it's going to be very pirate-tastic. You guys just figure out there's 3 pirate teams around the area, so you guys just got to figure it out. We're working on it now. Probably be a late show about 7:30ish, somewhere around there. But that's all we got, man. Ready for week 2.
Cool.
We're all ready to roll for week 2. So Billy's
Oh,
supposed
yes.
to go to your review of the Bobcats again. Mark, you're tentative on your game. Which game was that? Robstown. And Spud and Jake, you guys are tentatively supposed to be at the Miller Rockport game, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and then I'll be at TM and Ingleside. So.
And I think even if we don't call it, if something works out and we don't call it, we're
We'll be on
gonna
the sidelines.
we're gonna be there anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. But guys, again, everyone that's watching, we're gonna try and make this a norm every Wednesday at 5, so long as Spud and Justin's work schedule cooperates. Billy, you're welcome to join us weekly on this show as well. Mark, you know the role and the way how we roll and things.
Love to.
We're gonna have
So
to push
definitely-
it next week. We're on days next Wednesday.
And one quick note here, I know Jacob has said a couple of times he didn't want to steal Kevin's thunder until we get up to speed, and are as versed in the Coastal Bend area. I haven't been here covering in 6 years now, so we have a little bit to go. So you guys are going to be at the forefront when it comes to these shows. You guys have the most knowledge and everything. So until we're able to catch up, I mean, by all means, guys, floor is yours.
Fire away. I'm just introducing you guys and making y'all look pretty. And you guys spill all the people.
Hey, again, if we're not calling it, give us a follow. I'm gonna shameless plug here. Give us a follow on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at STFUNLTD. That's our Twitter handle, our Facebook handle, and our Instagram handle. We're always putting stuff out there, trying to put the spotlight on our kids. So give us a follow.
Absolutely, and of course, you guys can always catch all the games on Real Sports Live, and all of us will be at a football game somewhere on Friday night. So be sure to check out the games. Also, we have highlights also up there as well, along with some post-game interviews. We're trying to still get that going. I know there's a little difficult trying to get post-game interviews with players and coaches, but nonetheless, be sure to check out the games Friday night at 7:30. We'll be up there in the Coastal Bend. So Spud, Jake, Billy, Mark, myself saying we'll see you guys at the games on Friday. Thanks for joining us.
Take it easy.